Kuzuzampo, welcome to Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine program with me, Sunampem. Our top stories this week. His Majesty the King grants Tikka at the Shivalaya Mandir in Gallipoli to celebrate Dasai. His Majesty to grant Kidu to paddy farmers affected by the recent rain. And price of petrol and diesel reaches all-time high. His Majesty the King granted Tikka at Gallipoli Shivalaya Mandir to celebrate Dasai and met with Desups and Dzongkhag officials during His Majesty's visit to Gallipoli.
This morning, His Majesty the King offered prayers at the Gallipoli Shivalaya Mandir on the occasion of Dasai. His Majesty granted Dasai Tikka to representatives of the Hindu community of Gallipoli at the Mandir. Dasai Tikka granted by elders and parents conveys special blessings and protection. For those celebrating Dasai, His Majesty is regarded as an emanation of Vishnu. Dasai marks the victory of the Dharma king Rama, who was also an emanation of Vishnu over the demon Ravana, a victory of good over evil. While in Gallipoli, His Majesty granted audiences to the 46th batch Desups at training centres in Pelrithang and Jigmeling and the Gilsung site under development in Tarethang. His Majesty also visited the Desung skilling program for culinary arts ongoing in Semjong. The Desups, who began their training in August this year, received the opportunity to serve His Majesty during the visit. His Majesty was accompanied by the Minister for Economic Affairs. BBS News.
The decision to temporarily shut down the Thala hydropower plant in Chuka rests on a remotely conducted inspection report of its tunnel. A group of international experts is currently analyzing the report. The Druk Green Power Corporation, DGPC, says that if the group recommends the tunnel's physical inspection, the plant will be shut down for 3 months this winter.
According to the DGPC, since late 2018, pieces of concrete debris started appearing at the distributor and nozzle injectors in the powerhouse. A distributor is a part of a turbine that contains and guides the water from the inlet to exit. The nozzle injectors control the water flow to the turbines. The DGPC used a remotely operated vehicle equipped with underwater cameras and sonar technology to inspect the tunnel in March. In an email interview, the DGPC's Managing Director, Dashatheong Rinzin, says if the international experts recommend for a physical inspection of the tunnel, then the Thala hydropower plant would have to be shut down to enable the inspection. Dewatering and refilling of the headrest tunnel have to be undertaken slowly, and this exercise could take 1 to 2 months. In case the physical inspection reveals the rectification works are required, it could take another month or so depending on the extent of the measures. He adds, if the plant needs to be shut down, it will be scheduled during the winter months when the river level is at its lowest to minimize generation and revenue losses. The experts' analysis is expected within this month. The 1020 megawatt Thala hydropower plant is the country's largest plant and a major contributor to the domestic revenue. Its daily revenue generation during the peak season is about 55 million yutum. Meanwhile, at the moment, although all the 6 units of the plant can run at full capacity, Dashatheong Rinzin says only 3 units are operational. This is due to the reduced river water level, which is normal during this time of the year. Sangishizom for BBS News.
And if the Thala hydropower plant is temporarily shut down, Bhutan will not just lose revenue but also face a power shortage during the lean season. Today, the plant contributes more than 45% of the total power during the season.
During the dry season, the hydropower plants across the country generate over 410 megawatt of electricity, which is just enough to meet the domestic demand. Of this, about 190 megawatt is from the Thala hydropower plant.
Of the 400 megawatts peak capacity or the firm capacity demand, 70 to 75% is actually being attributed by these big industries, about 16 or 17 big industries. So in that sense, the household consumption per se, even if you take the Thala shutdown, it will not be constrained at all. But then of course, if we don't actually now import, then obviously we will face a situation by which then we may have to even shut down some of these industries from operation.
He said Bhutan has been importing electricity from India during winter whenever there is a shortage. However, today, amid the COVID pandemic, India is on the brink of an unprecedented power crisis. As per international news reports, as India's economy picked up after the second wave, the demand for power rose sharply. Power consumption in the last 2 months jumped by almost 17% compared to the same period in 2019. And in a country where the majority of electricity is generated using coal stocks are running critically low. Officials said they are in discussion with the Indian government regarding the import of electricity from India to Bhutan this lean season.
Obviously, we have requested the government of India, because the bilateral agreement or the 2006 umbrella agreement, there is a provision in which should there be any supply constraints, then the government of India will actually help us to support us in actually meeting those sort of requirements.
As per the Sustainable Hydropower Development Policy, in the event of a power deficit scenario, the supply of electricity will be prioritized first to essential public institutions and services, individual households, general commercial establishments, and then industries. Samtan Dolkar, BBS News.
The Punakha police arrested 4 women and a man suspected of deceptive practice and forgery recently. According to the police, the suspects hired 23 light vehicles from different individuals and sold them by forging documents. The police have recovered the cars.
The police recovered these vehicles involved in the case from the neighboring districts. They traced them with the help of the checkpost management system after one of the vehicle owners lodged a complaint earlier this week. The owner found a stranger driving his car in Thimphu. According to the police, the suspects allegedly hired the vehicles and sold them at a cheaper price.
They hired the vehicles from the owners, and some of the suspects used the cars as collateral for informal loans. They also prepared fake documents and sold the cars. When we interrogated the buyers, they said they bought the vehicles. Some vehicles were passed over from one buyer to another and had reached the 5th buyer too.
I hired out my vehicle for 1 month after drawing an agreement. They also paid a month's hiring charge in advance. We agreed to bring back the vehicle once to see its condition after a month and then draw the next agreement again. They kept in touch for some time, but when the time came to renew the agreement, I could not reach them by phone.
Some buyers changed the ownership of the vehicles and even obtained registration certificates from the RSTA.
During the investigation, we found that the vehicle ownerships had been changed instantly since the government made it mandatory for vehicle owners to update vehicle ownership.
The police said there could be more people as well as cars involved in the scam. They urged the general public to be wary of people selling vehicles at an unreasonably cheaper price.
It is a vehicle-related issue so far, but there are high chances that similar cases involving properties such as land will also come up. So we would like to request the people to refrain from buying such properties without proper verification.
The police will forward the case to the Office of the Attorney General for prosecution once the preliminary investigation is complete. For Changadoji in Punakha, Srindandup, BBS News.
The electric taxi drivers in the country want chargers installed across the country. Today, the farthest the electric taxis in the country can travel is about 400 kilometers. Therefore, they are unable to travel beyond a few districts where there are chargers.
Song Rinzin recently bought an electric taxi. He is charging the vehicle at the Lungtasampa taxi parking as he waits for passengers. Once fully charged, he can travel about 300 kilometers. So the farthest he travels is until Wandifoda because there are no charging stations beyond that.
It is not a problem when we travel within Thimphu or in the nearby districts. Currently, charging stations are installed in Paro, Wandi, Punakha and at Wangkha on the way to Phuntsholing. But it is a problem if we have to go on long tours like Bumtha and beyond. It would help us if there are charging stations in Mongar, Tongsa and Bumtha.
Taxi drivers say limited charging stations is discouraging them from buying electric vehicles. Currently, there are 15 electric taxis. The government plans to replace 300 taxis with electric vehicles by September next year.
When we talk about charging stations, we are not only talking about taxis, but there are a lot of private electric vehicles as well. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to charge. So without adequate charging points, it will be difficult for us.
For a few taxi drivers, the chargers are not compatible with their electric vehicles.
Without charging points, currently we cannot travel to Dagana or Gilefu. It will be helpful for us if there is a charging point along the highway between these districts. There are no fast charging stations for the model I bought, and it takes longer to charge in the AC charger, which is also available only at the agent. So we have to use the normal plug at home to charge.
But things will change. The Electric Vehicle Project Unit under the Prime Minister's Office plans to install chargers in every district by 2023. The project manager Sunam Topke said in the next 3 to 4 months, a team led by the Road Safety and Transport Authority will complete the feasibility study to install chargers.
We'll soon be completing installation of chargers in Takchuk Lakang in Punakha. It's in Parola. And the adequate number of chargers in Phuntsholing. And now this is only for phase 1 of the project. For phase 2, the government has already approved 69 million Nyultum to install chargers in the remainder of all 14 Dzongkhaks.
He said the taxi drivers should do some research before buying electric vehicles. Currently, the charging stations in the country are compatible with European and Japanese standards.
It is just not practical, at least for now, for us to install an outlet for each of these chargers. So however, that said, this is a free market economy. We cannot limit, and we do not want to limit technology. Interested EV dealers and buyers could still make their own choices and make arrangements if a particular vehicle's charger is not found compatible with the charging stations that we have.
So far, the project has installed 22 chargers in 6 districts at a cost of over 17 million Ngitam. Pupkiem for BBS News.
Under the Royal Kidu, His Majesty the King will compensate the families whose paddies were damaged by continuous rain earlier this week. The Prime Minister, upon the Royal Command, met with the people of Paro, conveying His Majesty's message. People in 13 districts are affected by the rain.
The continuous rain affected paddy growers across the country. Paro is the hardest hit district with over 900 families affected. According to the reports gathered by the Dzongkhak Agricultural Office, nearly 200 truckloads of rice are damaged in the Dzongkhak.
Ata zumbe mija se sunade daniru myongadari muchigi gebi zimbe sanali na zongda da egyo kote disukana cherda chiga zi lejime chapna gyuka pomidi de myongadari muchigi kidu gilerin ke se nani ise
명하다 무치기티 논이 있었대 네베데 칼롭 네베 논 인들 보면 베르 때때티 마치기 융카주기 때스노로 대장칼로 봤던 거 배워가지고 내가 참 셀로디 때 자nem지 메톤다메 만원데 베르 때 개박하는 민웅세때 네베 수수 있습니다.
다르기 택하기디 땡가 자 도대대 샤르기 예운이기 카툴레디 때 규티디 메조세 땡가 징가툴레 땡네베인 세슈니라 땡가 지기 카툴레 다 젠더쟁기 카툴레 차체 슈게 베게서와 마자로 주줍던 저 간데미노 땡닐레든디 다 중레디 때 규티디 사라라 메조 땡농게스미디로 때까지 체세
때 게비기 번제 임멜라 록록 안숨베 말레 슈미라 모 얄레만 노미기테 장가 첩질레게 데디나루 미베베오도랑 같이 셈갈로 차게디 bomra phobole tende tanga chemisigi khatule dalongme nga chegi khatule te tatugi di te tamadu na me samichi di tanga che pa ko chotu gi chirtangu beuda pa ko chotu se yase iro te gopsa chap bebe gole te nami samichi ra me phobe.
Meanwhile, a proper assessment of the extent of the damage is being carried out. For Namgyongwachu in Paro, Cheku for BBS News.
A group of self-funded PGDE graduates is claiming that the selection interview for this year's National Contract Teacher recruitment was not conducted fairly. They want the Education Ministry to review the interview process and outcome. Almost 30 of them wrote to the ministry regarding the issue. The representatives of the graduates requesting anonymity said they appealed to the Education Ministry several times after the result announcement earlier this month. These graduates completed postgraduate diploma in Zonka Education or PGDE from the Paro College of Education. All of them participated in the National Contract Teacher recruitment with the understanding that they would receive priority over the general graduates. But to their dismay, they weren't selected in the 124 slots.
시릴 행각이 찹다비미날레 데 zonkhasulo shirim komada PGDE suda tele lopenyamno chen chulu 때 구체기 탭다 구체 탭다 조림 담반 아니세 순나이 안 이바 안 순도 숨베라 숨바나이 쇼트리스트 날외 톱 30 날로 취되어 세슈니라 데다 안에베 숭 안에베 비위 타말로 때 공기 둡데 리절트 때림달로 때 티수카르 취주베 아실라 담바 셰릴렘 보기 숨미디 담마티 니바 셰릴 행각이 찹다베미디 담마티
동체인지 때 배워진 가지기 춘조디 게르중시올 헨소기 람로tardo te lenese sumidida dezumbera shirigmito gobengi bewaje ngachigi 춘조디 te 춘조디고라 시작되게 lenebe semidini te gadebina ta matun sujunila
당아지 디날로 정달 쭉라 시림 고미기 다 공마 타르큐미 정달 타큐미다 루비 냠뇽유미디스 때마 자찰레 굽축고 ngadeji 타르마큐에셀라 아니 타마키니 디게 nga체나 아팅가첼로 케기 마투 가치베서 와진 공기 해마 디 공기 고가비유세 실레 미세메디 공기 아피기 빠다디 자살레 튜니메베 랍템발레 ngacel로 케기 마투 옵세슈니라
로니닐레 정더베미기 라케디 쿠맵좀메 데베제오메 에서 슈돌라 데 가차업서 와진 당아치 다슈 존신기 순도 좀 배워진데 데 nga치 게르데기베 트루 세로랑기 타주미디 게르데나라 차모토고베 데베숨메 데디 가치베 nga치 융기나 차모토모초 이나 데디나기 쿵치케 순수바친 땡아치르 삼바조베 에스 슈돌라.
Meanwhile, according to the Education Ministry's Chief Human Resource Officer, all the recruitment processes were carried out following the Bhutan Civil Service Rules 2018. Over an email interview, he said, the selection was based on their performance scores obtained in the interview. The candidates who possess B8, PGD and teaching experience were given preference for shortlisting. Moreover, the Education Ministry has not been conducting written tests to recruit contract teachers. He added after the shortlisting, all the shortlisted candidates were given the same level playing field and the ministry never meant to select the PGDE candidates directly without going through the selection process. With the selection result already declared and selected candidates called for placement, the Human Resource Division said the ministry cannot do anything further. Sunampem for BBS News. The price of petrol and diesel has recorded an all-time high this month. The price of petrol increased by almost 4 ngitam a week ago, and diesel saw an increase of more than 5 ngitam a litre.
In Thimphu, a litre of petrol now costs 81 ngitam and diesel touches 80 ngitam a litre. Before the rise, petrol was 77 ngitam a litre and diesel was sold at 75 ngitam. The fuel price is revised twice a month. According to the Department of Trade, the increase is due to the rising price of global crude oil and rupee depreciation. It now takes more rupees to purchase a dollar. $1 is now equal to 75 rupees. The price of global crude oil has gone up to almost $85 per barrel due to high demand as a result of the opening up of economies across the globe. The department also said that the current increase in price is not abnormal considering the current inflation rate and prices compared to October 2018. The country's fuel price is dependent on the Indian economy since Bhutan directly imports fossil fuel products from India. In India, the prices of petrol and diesel continue to remain high. The price of petrol in Delhi rose to its highest ever level of 105 rupees a litre as of yesterday. The Trade Department said the rise in the price of fuel is expected to continue until the global demand and supply stabilizes. Samten Dolkar, BBS News.
For paddy growers of Tang Gyeok in Bumthang, rice comes only after months of exhausting battle with birds. Farmers ward off the birds with various methods, but that demands a person to remain in the fields chasing birds for months. Among the birds, the main culprits are the wild sparrows. This nuisance has in a way affected the farmers in expanding paddy cultivation.
Carrying her baby on her back, Soki is in charge of her family's paddy today. She has been in this field at Nimlung since 6 in the morning. Several scarecrows are erected all over the field, but they don't help much. Shouting and beating plates and plastic bottles are her best weapons.
When a large flock comes, all the grains will be eaten. When they come in smaller groups, they make nests within the paddy stalks and hide. They come out and cause damages when we leave. Some do not flee even when we stone them.
And she's not alone. About 100 meters away, Hishinirup is also on his regular patrol. He shows me the damages. He uses a catapult, an empty bottle filled with pebbles, and this traditional audible bird scarer to chase the birds.
As my field is not that big, I can manage to chase the birds, but those with bigger fields require more than one person to scare off the birds. The birds keep hovering around the fields. The sonic tool used, which is locally called as wurula, helps a bit.
Jimmy Chodin is also having a difficult time putting up with the swooping sparrows.
Without the pest birds, most people would have taken up paddy cultivation, but now even the ones that have been cultivating are considering giving it up.
At Narut, some have hung models of prey birds as repellents. However, sparrows soon get accustomed to the method. A few villagers use yak hair slings to throw stones at the birds.
It is especially difficult for households with fewer heads. We have to beat bottles and plates to keep the birds away. Hurling stones on them doesn't work. So we use the slings to produce a swishing sound to frighten them.
The situation is similar in other paddy-growing villages of Tang, such as Kinzata and Pangjing. People in Tang say pest bud attacks on paddy began almost 2 years after the crop was first cultivated in the Gyeok in 2004. Rice is grown in over 40 acres of paddy fields in Tang. In Chekor, which is the other rice-growing Gyeok in Puntang, such incidences are minimal. The Dzongkhag agriculture officer said, although the office is aware of the issue, there are no immediate solutions. The office is also unsure of the severity of the damages. However, the office plans to explore and promote electronic rappelling methods, such as playing recorded distress calls of birds and predator sounds. For now, until a solution is found, the sparrow menace will continue to be a daily struggle of Thang's nearly 60 households of paddy growers. Kipchu, BVS News, Pumthang.
That's all for this week. Thank you for joining us.